Hello and welcome to Wordpath, a show about the importance of Oklahoma Indian languages and the people who are preserving and teaching them. Before we get started on tonight's program, I'd like to mention a little bit about our closing sequence that you'll see at the end of tonight's show. It was supposed to be on last week's introductory show, and through a production error, which I take responsibility for, our show ran over a little bit and we had to cut it out. But you'll see it from tonight and from tonight on and other shows. It shows shots from around Oklahoma where all the Indian languages are spoken. And the music that you'll hear in the closing sequence is by Albert Nakwati. He's singing a Comanche hand game song that says, Ana Mawinakita. He's standing on a hill. Wapini Manawunikita. He looks like a cedar tree. It's a very simple song, and it talks about the strong medicine that you need to win at the hand game. So it's about medicine and about being enduring like a cedar tree. And I thought it was an appropriate reference to Oklahoma Indian language teachers. Our guests tonight are two people that have been involved in preserving the Cherokee language, Bobby Blossom, and could you say your Cherokee name for us, please?
My Cherokee name is Ujil Dos.
Ujil Dos. Well, welcome. And
Thank you, Alice.
he brought with him Onita Lynch, who has been a student of his in several Cherokee classes, and now assists him in the class that he's teaching at a local gallery in Norman. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourselves first. Bobby, can you tell where you were born and what languages you spoke when you were growing up?
I was born in 1951 in the Indian Hospital in Rogers County. I have 8 other sisters and 3 other brothers.
Big family.
So there's 12 of us in the family.
Mm-hmm.
And since I was born in the month of November, I started school. They held me back from school, so I didn't start learning English till I was about 7 years old, and I was speaking Cherokee all that time.
So you didn't speak any English until you went to school. Was that difficult?
No, it was easy, though. Since I had older siblings, they were able to help me whenever I came home with homework.
That must have helped. I bet it was hard for the oldest.
Well, there's a difference of years there, so, you know, when they're the oldest, usually it was behind them,
right.
the next one after them,
right.
who did all the work.
And Onita, you're also Cherokee, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm about a quarter Cherokee.
Where are you from?
I'm from Bartlesville, which is in the Cherokee territory, but it's like the outpost. And my grandfather was the Cherokee Indian. After World War I, he moved to Bartlesville and worked for city service, but he went as a baseball player. And so I grew up close to him, and we didn't speak any Cherokee. We didn't really do any cultural activities, but he was Cherokee, and I think I got a lot of Cherokee culture just by being close to him.
And when did you start studying Cherokee language?
Well, I came back, I'd been gone a long time. I came back to Oklahoma about 4 years ago, and I started looking at my Cherokee ancestors and got interested. So I started taking Cherokee about 2 years, a little more than 2 years ago, at the courses offered at OU. At that time, there were other speakers, and they weren't there very regularly. And so I didn't really get real interested until Bobby started being the speaker, and then suddenly, for some reason, I got real interested, and I've been working hard at it since then. But 2 years is not long enough to be fluent in any language.
Well, of course not. But
and this is a difficult language.
From being in Bobby's class the last couple of months and hearing how much Cherokee you do know, I know that you've obviously learned a lot. So you must be a good teacher, Bobby.
Yeah, she started taking it whenever in Cherokee 3, that part of her, out of 3 Cherokees.
Yeah, that was when you started.
So you took Cherokee 1, 2, and 3 at OU,
Mm-hmm.
but you didn't have Bobby for a teacher until Cherokee 3?
Right.
Oh.
And that was just last year.
Was she any good when she started Cherokee 3, Bobby?
Well, that I don't know. I would just, well, I don't want to say that.
I don't want to ask you to criticize.
I remember I didn't really know any words when I started Cherokee 3.
Really?
They were talking about simple words, and I didn't know them then, but I learned fast for some
Well,
reason.
you must have learned a lot. I can tell that you
Starting
know a lot
about
by
then.
now. Bobby, I forgot to ask you if you could please teach us how to say hello in your language. How would I greet a Cherokee person in Cherokee?
In Cherokee, the way you say hello is Osayo. And then
Osayo.
now there comes the dialectal form, which is the style that I talk, which is a contracted form, an abbreviated form. And the proper greeting there would be Sayo. You know, just a real quick seal.
So does this depend on where you come from or your mood?
Right,
or?
there's 8 dialects in the Cherokee language,
8
and
dialects.
I use one of them. And so it's the abbreviated form.
Okay. So I could either say to you, oh, Sio, or just Sio.
Sio, right, and it'd be proper.
Okay, good, thank you. Could you tell us a little bit about the OU classes, that you've both been involved in them in different ways for different lengths of time? How is Cherokee taught at OU?
It's as you know, it's taught in a dual capacity, if that's the way I can use the word. For one, it's the native speaker, and then we have a graduate student who's who she teaches the grammar part. She's a
kind of a team teaching.
Team teaching. Yeah, that's a nicer word. And but my form is my duty is to as the speaker is, you know, whenever it's time to say the word, and that's whenever I step in to say it. And her function was the grammar part mostly, the way I seen it when I first came.
So the person who's functioning as the linguist, I have some experience because I had this role in the Comanche classes for a while when I used to work there. The linguist just sort of organizing the class and doing the analysis and the grammar and things.
Right,
but you are the ultimate resource because you're the speaker of Cherokee, right? And the linguist, in the case of the Cherokee classes, is not a speaker of Cherokee. I mean, not a fluent.
Right. But she's an expert in linguistics, so.
So the idea is that the students kind of get the best of both. They get a person that can teach natural, fluent Cherokee, that, like yourself, that's spoken in all their life, and at the same time they can get the little picking apart the sentences and figuring out the rules to help them figure out how to make their own sentences. I think it's, I know in our Comanche team that system worked out pretty well. There are some advantages and disadvantages to it, I think. How would you compare that experience with your experience at the Tribes Gallery class that you've been teaching, where it's basically you on your own who are in charge of the class?
It was another level because I really wanted to teach it as more conversational in there, and not, since I didn't have the capacity like in class on campus type of setting, you know. I was trying to implement more of the conversational type of deal in there.
Yeah. Well, I certainly enjoyed it. I've only studied with you for 8 weeks, but I felt like I learned a lot given the short time. I think, and I know Onita was instrumental in helping you organize things and making handouts and copying tapes for us and helping in a lot of ways and writing things on the board. And I think the two of you together packed an awful lot into an 8-week session. I feel like, you know, at first I thought that wouldn't be very long. How much could I learn? But I really, in fact, I brought my notebook to give an idea. This doesn't mean that I learned everything that's in it, but I've got all this packet of notes and handouts and songs. And this isn't counting the tapes, of course. And we've got our information on the syllabary and some grammatical analysis that went with it and so forth. I thought it was really very valuable. You'll be starting this class up again in January, right?
In January, probably about the second week after the semester starts back. So there'll be enough time to go through the spring break and give them a break too, and then come back after the break for a couple of weeks more.
So you'll be starting, what, about the 3rd week of January, something like that?
The 3rd week or 4th week.
Okay. And if people are interested in signing up for that class, will you be starting with beginners again, or just continuing the previous class, or what?
It'll be a little of both, I would say. There's more to learn in there. I've implemented more of a word list, and I want to use that for both the one on campus and that one too.
Most of the people who took it the first time say they want to take it again. They want to go back and
I certainly would like to
review the
sign up
things that they
again.
learned.
Yeah. If people are interested in taking a class there, should they call you or the Tribes Gallery or what?
Yeah, they can call me and I can give them most of the information they need to know, and Tribes Gallery would have the same info also.
Okay. Onita, you've taken all 3 levels of the classes at OU, and then you've been involved in the Tribes Gallery class. And do you have any reflections on the difference? It's a different kind of setting, a little bit different approach. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, the reason I've been helping is I'm kind of a non-traditional student. I'm also a professor at OU in audiology, and I have a background in not really linguistics, but phonetics and things like that.
Yeah.
Bobby spoke Cherokee all of his life, but he never had to study the grammar.
So quite another thing to approach it as an outsider who hasn't spoken it all
and
their life. Yeah.
he never had to learn to read and write it, so he's just been learning that recently.
Yeah.
I'm good at phonetics, so I can do that.
Right.
And so that's been kind of my function
Mm-hmm.
in the class. When I first started taking it, there were different speakers. I'm not sure how much difference it made, except that they weren't there as regularly, so I didn't get as much spoken part of it. The way he's doing it at Tribes Gallery really is more spoken. I think that's
Yeah. I think that's
a nice
important.
way to approach it.
I think if you want to gain some ability to speak it, you need to speak it. You need to experience that rather than just sitting there and listening. You can learn a lot by sitting and listening or going through word lists and doing analysis, but then somebody says, hey, how you doing in the language, and if you don't know what to say back, you feel like you haven't learned much, even though you have learned a lot. I mean, there are both ways of looking at language, but I personally like to do as much oral work as possible myself.
In the classes at OU, they started out by trying to translate some old documents from the Western History Museum.
Wow.
And it's interesting to try to do that, but they tend to speak it differently. Yeah, so it's kind of hard to do that, doing it the way Bobby does it.
Well, of course, I'm sure the
Works
different
easier.
students take classes in different places
Yeah.
for their own different reasons. What would you, Bobby, have you noticed a difference, say, in the average student that takes classes at OU versus the students that you got in your class that you had at Tribes Gallery? Is it a
yeah.
different group of people, and how are
The
they
different group is the age is the difference. They're a little older, the ones in the community are. And obviously the students, your average student, and a variety of their majors and stuff. You know, they're not just. Whenever we first started the class this semester, in the beginning class, most of them introduced themselves as that they had some Cherokee blood in them. Their aunts and uncles spoke it, and so they were wanting to speak a little bit of it themselves, and that's why they were taking it. Not only because it's a foreign language requirement now or something like that.
Yeah, I think it's good that OU has allowed the, it's almost, you know, it's a sort of embarrassing word to say that OU now allows the American Indian language courses to qualify as if they were any other modern language. Of course, they are a modern language, and it's about time the university recognized that, but let's give them credit. They did, and students that are regular students can now get their 3 units of credit for each Cherokee class that they take, or, you know, or Creek or whatever it is. And I do think that's a very positive thing about the OU classes, and it's kind of a, you know, some long overdue respect for Indian languages. I think that's good. What kind of, how would you describe the people that have taken the class at Tribes Gallery besides myself?
They were from different walks of life also. Like I said, they were a little bit older. That's a good word to use there and to be nice.
Well, yeah, I don't think
They
were.
might
They're mostly part
get a stick
Cherokee
in here.
too.
They were
But
also mostly Cherokee people.
Right, mostly Cherokee. I had an artist in there, Miss Sullivan,
Yes.
and
Dorothy Sullivan, well-known
and
artist
then
that I like a lot.
I had a real estate lady. She's into real estate, Miss Townsley, and then I think Miss Seymour was some kind of teacher. I didn't get a chance to get her background, but I think she did that, and so just a variety of them in there. But
And
they
there were a few
older.
people who had taken the OU classes and then also joined you at Tribes Gallery, right?
Well, Miss Seymour had.
She was
so,
an example.
Yeah.
So I think it does go to show you there's a little bit different focus in the two classes, and people may find both useful, but there is somewhat of a difference. Is there any recommendation you could make to Indian people who might be planning to teach a class as to what sort of approach in general you think is the best combination? You know, how much grammar or how much oral activity would you recommend?
That's the part that I'm just now. What's a good word for that? I don't want to call it brainstorm, but it's like
You're kind
all
of
at once type
developing
of deal. It's an all at once type of deal where they're trying to put me in there real quick, you know, for me to do that. And so for me to answer that question, I'd have to go through that, what they got, what OU has in store for me.
So in other words, you're saying that OU is, that you anticipate that OU will ask you to teach a Cherokee class on your own, not in the team teaching approach, but just yourself.
Right.
That's one of the
Eventually
reasons you
that's gonna
started to
happen.
teach this class at Tribes Gallery, wasn't it? To kind of get practiced up for being the head
And I'm
teacher.
supposed to take some kind of institute this coming summer anyway, and to try to build me up to it. Also
good, very
for just
good.
something about learning phonetics in there. Or
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that'll be helpful, but I don't think you have a thing to worry about, do you, Onita? I think he's a fine teacher, and
But there's a lot to learn about that language.
sure, there's always more to learn, even if you've spoken a language all your life. Teaching it is something else, and learning how to teach it and your favorite techniques and things to point out to people, it just takes experience, but I think you're doing a terrific job. What kind of, maybe you and Onita could both tell us a little bit about the kinds of materials that you've used in the classes, or either that have been used at OU or at the Tribes Gallery class?
Well, in Cherokee 1, there was always a packet in there, and my co-instructor mostly focused on that. It was already a set, something one of the other past speakers had compiled, a word list type of deal. And then every year, every semester, she was just expounding on that word list, and that's what she has me doing now. And that's the same one I used at Tribes Gallery also.
You've been making some other materials.
You have used some other things too. What kind of things have you added to that in your own class?
Well, when I got out of Cherokee 3, I wanted to continue learning, and so I was tired of just working on single words. I wanted some connected speech. So he started making some materials that have connected speech, like telling a story, and they're on a tape. We also have a written form where they're written in phonetics and in the Cherokee syllabary. And this has been really good for me in that it's been a chance for me to hear connected speech instead of just studying words. So it really has helped a lot. And I think it's a good attempt at language preservation to get some materials like that and make them available to people.
Yeah. You mentioned the syllabary. You brought this chart with you. Let me see if we can get this on camera so that people can see what the Cherokee syllabary looks like. Can you describe a little bit of what people are seeing here?
Well, Cherokee really is written in a syllabary, which means every symbol stands for a syllable instead of a sound. So there's a different symbol for si, so, su, sa. There are about 85 symbols altogether. And it's very interesting to try to read it.
I must say that's one aspect of Cherokee studies that I have not gotten into yet. I know you gave us a handout with the basically each of these syllabary symbols that we could make little flashcards out of, and to be perfectly honest, I haven't actually made up the flashcards yet. I'm a little bit intimidated by it. I'm always intimidated by new alphabets. But there is another way to write Cherokee as well. Why don't you
Well,
describe
you can
that?
write it in phonetics, and that way you write exactly what you hear, which is good, because when you write in the syllabary, you have to put in all of the sounds because it's a whole syllable. You have to put it all in. But when Bobby speaks, he leaves out a lot of the vowels, particularly.
So when you say writing phonetically, you mean with the consonant and vowel symbols, something like the English alphabet, although some of them are pronounced a little bit differently. So you have a consonant and a vowel and a consonant and a vowel. And in the syllabary, a single symbol might stand for a consonant and vowel together. And so if the speaker in rapid speech or in their particular dialect happens to leave out the consonant or the vowel, you still have to use that syllabary symbol, which is one of the things that makes it a little hard to figure out which syllabary symbol to use, because you don't necessarily hear both of the sounds.
And when you're trying to read it, it's all in there. So that doesn't really tell you how to say it. When you write it in phonetics, you can remember how to say it. So we need to do that.
Yeah, I think it's good to know both. I know a lot of people have strong feelings in favor of the Cherokee syllabary because it's kind of a cultural treasure, and it's very important to them to learn to use it. For my purposes, just in our 8 weeks so far, I just wanted to learn to take notes and be able to read them back and pronounce things, and I haven't quite tackled this yet, but I think it would be terrific to be able to actually learn Cherokee syllabary, and it's so beautiful looking. I was always enchanted when I went to Tahlequah and saw a few signs there in Cherokee syllabary, and I thought, wow, what's that? That's pretty neat, you know. I'd love to be able to read it.
You can do it in handwriting. That's the way the materials from the Western History Library are. They're written in handwriting, so it's kind of hard to recognize them sometimes.
So just as in the English alphabet, where you can have typewritten things or word processed or whatever, or block printing, but then you have a script form that looks a little bit different, so you have to kind of adjust. Oh my gosh, 85 symbols and 2 or 3 variations on them too. Well,
besides that,
someday.
in the old materials, they wrote them real different. It's kind of hard to figure out which one it is sometimes.
And I guess we should mention the famous Cherokee linguist before the modern field of linguistics ever came along, the fellow who invented all of this.
It was George Guest.
Now, why is it, I understand he has the name George Guest, and he's also called Sequoia. What is the difference there? Is the Sequoia his Cherokee name, or what's the deal?
Yeah,
there?
that's the name.
I was never quite certain of that, yeah. So this alphabet, this syllabary has been around for quite a while, and I can understand why Cherokee people would be very proud to have it. It's quite an achievement, I think.
There have been newspapers written in it. In fact, they still are. My great-grandfather was a sheriff in the late 1800s in Tahlequah. And I'm sure he must be mentioned in the newspapers, but I've read the English parts and he's not mentioned there.
So now you have to get
now I
really
need to
practiced up on
be
your
able to-
syllabary to
yes.
find out where his name is. Wouldn't that
sure
be
he must be
terrific to find
mentioned.
that in there among the characters? Well, this is really interesting. What about, we've talked about this as kind of a cultural treasure. Let me give this back to you so I don't forget. The syllabary itself, but what other kinds of aspects, Bobby, of Cherokee culture are connected to the language? I mean, you gave us, in the class, you made available to us some recordings of Cherokee songs, for instance, that I found very beautiful. Christian hymns, mostly. They're very, very pretty. I would imagine that is, in and of itself, is kind of a cultural treasure, and to translate those into English and just sing them in English would be a great distortion. Are there other things like that people value very much that are very intimately connected to the language?
Well, to begin with, actually to try to translate them that way would be difficult because they've already set, you know,
It's,
as
it
you know,
matches
on
the
that
music,
one
of
song that
course.
we tried to do, we couldn't
Right.
interpret that one word.
Right.
We have a tape of stomp dance music, so
Uh-huh.
that's
Stomp
all in
dance
Cherokee.
music.
And so it's, you know, I don't know what would be missing if that wasn't around.
I know you mentioned that you wanted to read some poems that your Cherokee students had written. I guess that you could call that modern Cherokee culture. I don't know how long of a tradition there is of this type of poetry in Cherokee, but it's a good classroom exercise that I've used to have your language students write simple poems in the language. It gives them a feeling that they can really do something with the language. Would you like to read a couple?
Okay, thank you. In the Cherokee one, they delve into the syllabary at the end of the class time. I mean, at the end of the semester, sort of. And so that's what they've done here. And you can see some of the, if I wish I could show you all some of this art that they've did.
Being on white paper, I don't know how well it'll show up. Why don't you just show it briefly, and maybe we'll just have you read what you have there on the. This is examples of three
Well,
students' work. Is that
Yeah, it's just something that I was wanting to read all.
Please do. We'd like to
you
hear
had asked
them.
me to.
We'd love to hear them.
And it says, I'll read them off in Cherokee.
Okay.
Gole, uhiad, unola, guti, toyu, akelakta, gol, toyu, uwotuha. Winter, cold air, it is snowing, I love it. Winter, it is beautiful.
The meaning sounds very beautiful, but the Cherokee words also sound really beautiful. I bet the student who wrote that felt pretty good after that.
And here's another one. I know that I think she told me she had grandchildren or something. It says, Ayol ujeli udetiha, kali elig nikachi chiluk, uganast itiga, unad itatita, unad uganast, uganasta, kali elig agotena. A child's birthday, I'm glad you came. Let's eat some cake. Let's drink some milk. Milk, sweets, delicious. I'm glad I was born.
Very nice. Very nice.
And here's one that's
you have one more?
that's one
Go ahead.
more, if you don't mind. Talks
ahead.
about a sport, sort of. Because they were going through all the semester asking me about sports and stuff. And you know, in Cherokee, you just have to, if there's no word for it, you just have to translate as far as what, you know, how to say a particular word. And so in this case, it's like we've given a name for a football. Ulasten squashesti, which is like a foot and a ball. And then katanausti, I run. Kahyante squashlist, I kick the ball. And kilonjuk sesta squashlist, but wikalosko, the goalkeeper dives. And squashlist, wikaloha. That's wikaloha. So that's go.
Oh, like that soccer announcer. Oh, very good. I think that's terrific. I think it makes students feel very powerful to be able to do something artistic with the language, even when they're at a relatively beginning
these
level
are
of
Cherokee
learning.
1 students.
And so the language is simple. I mean, the sentences they construct are simple, and yet they put it together in an artistic way, and it's very powerful language. I think that's a really good exercise. We're running a little low on time. I think, Onita, didn't you have a couple of materials you wanted to mention that you brought with you that, or have we covered those
Yeah, I think
adequately?
I told you about them.
Bobby, you were saying people could get in touch with you if they're interested in the class. Would you like to give your phone number, or how should we work
Okay,
that?
they could either contact Tribes Gallery, because they'll have the dates
Okay.
also. and I think they're in the phone book.
Okay.
And as far as my phone number to contact me is 573-9115 here in Norman. And I'll be available to answer the phone before noon, 8 o'clock to 12.
Very good.
But after that, I have class time.
And Tribes Gallery is on Main Street in downtown Norman.
307 East Main.
307 East Main. Very good. I forgot to ask you all if you could, but perhaps Bobby, could you show us in general where the Cherokee-speaking area is in the state on our map here?
Okay. I'm pointing to the northeastern side.
Is it this much, or?
Yeah, it's this area right here.
Okay.
And all this is the Cherokee country in this area.
And the
And you
national
can even see
capital.
Cherokee County.
Very
Here's
good.
Mace County.
How about Tahlequah? Do we?
Yeah, that's in
find it?
Cherokee County. It's right here
And
somewhere.
oh, here we go, Tahlequah.
Yeah,
And
way
that's
down
where
there.
the national capital is, correct?
The capital Cherokee.
All right, good. Well, thank you very much, both of you, for being my guests. I've really enjoyed
Yeah,
this. I
thank
think
you for
it's
having
been
me.
very informative. And how will we say goodbye?
Well, that's to one person you say Dona Dago Hai. And then for more than one person you use a DA, Dona Dago Hai. So to you it would be Dona Dago Hai.
And to
And
you
you would
it would
say-
be Toda Dagon Ha'i.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you again very much. See you next time on Wordpath.
Na hene yo hene, na hene yo hene, ana magwana kita, wa pene manaone kita. Na hene yo hene, na hene yo hene, ana magwana kita, wa pene manaone kita. Na hene yo hene, na hene yo hene, ana magwana kita, wa pene manaone kita. Na hene yo hene, na hene yo hene, ana magwana kita, wa pene manaone kita. Na hene yo hene, na hene yo hene, ana magwana kita, wa pene manaone kita. Na hene yo hene, na hene yo hene,